How about 15? Feels like 0. And it's only going to get colder. The big temperature changes, not limited to the Twin Cities, but many locations across the Great Lakes and the Plains dealing with a big difference between now and 24 hours ago. We're 42 degrees colder in Kansas City, about 30 degrees colder in both St. Louis and Des Moines, nearly 30 degrees colder than this time yesterday in Minneapolis, 18 degrees colder in Chicago. So you've already begun to see that cold air sinking into the region. Over the last 6 hours, look at this. We went from the 60s to the 30s to the 20s in St. Louis, an incredible drop off. So you're really seeing the potency of this Arctic front, that temperature or that air crashing in and those temperatures just dropping like a rock, like as if you dropped a rock in the swimming pool. We go into the morning hours tomorrow, and now we see that cold air working into Indianapolis, place like Cincinnati. By lunchtime tomorrow, you're in the mid-30s, low 30s in Cleveland by noon on Friday. But how do these cold front works? I think a lot of times in your mind you think it's just cold air into warm air, and the cold air just pushes the warm air out of the way. But when we actually look at the nitty-gritty of a cold front, it's more like a wedge, like you said.
It really is. I mean, just think about it in this form right here. It's a wedge. It's cold air advancing on warm air and displacing it. So that's what we're in essence doing with our cold front with Winter Storm Hunter. So initially when it starts, it's generally a shallow layer of cold air, maybe just a couple of 100 feet deep. And that's okay, right? And that's a lot of times where we've been mentioning it all night, freezing rain. So you've got a shallow pocket of cold air, and rain falls into that, freezes down to the surface because everything's below 32 degrees.
Right, because when that cold air wedges in, it takes the warm air out ahead of it and actually pushes it up over it. So that's why you will have rain falling above that shallow pocket of cold air. You get a little farther back, and you still have warm air aloft, but then you may have a slightly thicker layer of cold air.
Yeah, once you get the whole pool of cold air to take over, this could be thousands of feet thick, right? So all this cold air then eventually can displace all of this warm air. And the warm air above you, it's odd to think about it, but the air higher up is going to be warmer than the air is down at the surface. But in essence, this is a way a front works. Warm air overtakes cold air overtakes warm air, warm fronts and cold fronts. This is just kind of how our atmosphere works.
But this is why we'll see that potpourri of wintry precipitation, why we're going to go, say, from rain to freezing rain to sleet and then eventually to snow in some of these areas. Like Indianapolis, you can see it perfectly.
Yeah, so initially, it's warm air. 54 degrees at 10 o'clock tonight. By 2 a.m., look at this. We're going to icy weather. We're down to 32. There's that just shallow pocket of cold air where that wedge just starts to nose in, right? Then eventually it gets cold enough with a deeper layer of cold air, everything becomes snow.
Right, and you'll notice the temperatures dropping throughout the period, but once you get the snow, don't think it's okay to get out there and going because you'll have that ice underneath, so things will stay very
really slick on the roadways.
Maybe not as prolonged a period of ice in Buffalo.
No, the front may be a little faster here. We'll go from the 50s down to the 20s in a matter of about 12 plus hours. So a short period, we think, of freezing conditions with ice, and then we go over to snow, and a longer period of snow, whereas we saw previously it was a longer period of ice and a shorter period of snow. This one's longer snow.
Right. In Cincinnati, we also think a fairly brief period of ice, if any. That rain to snow transition may happen a little bit faster with that cold air column basically becoming much more thick quicker.
And we've seen a lot of the National Weather Service offices in this part of the country talk about how the advancement of the cold air has been quick.
And that's going to make all the difference.
Changeover is going to happen fast.
Yeah, so Chris, I would imagine that's really the one thing that you're watching is just how quick are you going to get that cold air, that deep cold air move in.
Exactly right, and how it comes in, just like what you guys were talking about. In fact, here from Louisville, Kentucky, where temperatures are still in the 50s, even around 60 degrees in some cases, we're going to talk about that, continue that conversation. Dr. Erica Navarro is here. We're going to discuss the factors that could make things even better or worse for travel tomorrow. Stay with us. Our ongoing coverage of Winter Storm Hunter continues right. Winter Storm Hunter on the move right now. You are watching the Weather Channel. I'm meteorologist Chris Warren in Louisville, Kentucky. It is on its way here with it. It's going to start off with rain, snow, ice, and extremely cold temperatures. Temperatures are going to plummet from the 60s this afternoon. Same time tomorrow, about 30 degrees colder. Temperatures are going to be into the 30s tomorrow evening, and we're looking at snow on the way. But before the snow, there's going to be ice. Whether it's freezing rain or sleet, it remains to be seen. We want to bring in Dr. Erica Navarro right now. And Dr. Navarro, there's a lot we do know with this. We know it's mild right now. There's some guys just wrapping up a ultimate frisbee game in their shorts. Tomorrow we know it's going to be cold enough that there will be some snow. It's that transition that's going to be tricky. What are you going to be interested in looking at during the day tomorrow with the cold front?
Yeah, so I'm really interested with the rapid movement of the front. How quickly does that cold air come in? It's moved in really fast. It's already freezing rain and cold temperatures in St. Louis. But Chris, there's this window of opportunity where the cold air up above may not reach that cold air at the surface. And in that case, that leaves us an opportunity for freezing rain to form.
And that's what Mike and Alex were talking about.
Yes, Mike and Alex have been harping on this all day.
Now, do you see anything that perhaps could allow the upper level to catch up with the lower that you're looking at?
So here in Louisville, I think the threat for ice is quite high. But east of here, as we go east of 65, that front may stall as we reach the mountains. And if that's the case, that would give that cold air time to catch up to that front. And so maybe that window of opportunity for freezing rain or sleet wouldn't be as big, because once that cold air is aligned, everything will fall as snow because everything will be below freezing. So that may make travel better later in the day. But here in Louisville, we still could have that chance for freezing rain because that window of opportunity might be a bit bigger than maybe we were initially thinking. Because again, that cold air is moving in quickly already that we're seeing today.
And we're talking about this with Interstate 64 behind us, which you can transfer up to 65 here. And this is going to be a big issue.
Yeah.
Right? This is going to be something that we're going to be watching, the impacts from this. And so timing really is key.
It really is. And when you talk about people heading out on the road in the morning, this is the exact timing of that front. Maybe around lunchtime, that cold air starts to sneak in, that wintry mix begins to start. That's when people might be on the roads, and maybe people here aren't used to it. A lot of new people might have moved in and may not have seen the
Real quickly, is there anything that would surprise you about tomorrow or not, or you think it's a slam dunk?
Yeah, I would be surprised. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Navarro, we're going to be here checking it out throughout the entire event as it happens tomorrow. Again, going to work here in Louisville, rain. Coming home, snow. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you both very much. It is going to be interesting to watch this thing play out. We know that. And when the cold air gets there, just makes all the difference in the world. You can see, we've already seen the front come through Illinois. Now starting to see, places like northwest Indiana start to cool down a little bit as well with the latest observations. But cold north wind as opposed to a warm south wind.
Yeah, and those temps have been crashing. We were watching Milwaukee, Chicago in the 50s about 2 hours ago. Now they're in the 30s. There's the snow focused really up around the Great Lakes. A little bit of freezing rain here. As you mentioned, I think we're going to begin to see that fill in farther east now as we go through the overnight.
There's a little bit more moisture a little bit farther east, but take a look at St. Louis. Our temperature is now down to 26. We have rain and sleet for us right now, but you get to Peoria, just up the street here, we're at 15 and we're at snow. So there's going to be a changeover for a lot of folks tonight. Tomorrow morning could be a real tough morning for us in St. Louis.
Yeah, it could be problematic. The one positive would be is if we got this cold air surging a little faster and we were able to really, chill off that column and make that transition from rain to snow much quicker. When you looked at a forecast for a place like Indianapolis and saw the extent that the models were showing that freezing rain, that makes you awfully nervous.
I think there's a patch there between, say, Indianapolis and Dayton that could really be in the sweet spot for snow and freezing rain. But look at Chicago. You're down below freezing now, but you know what? All the moisture is pushed east of you. So you may get the temperatures that come down, but you may not get it to match up with the precip. Indianapolis, a heavier pocket of rain rolling. It's 55 degrees there. It's almost 60 degrees right now in Cleveland. Yeah. That's nuts.
And how dramatically and drastically they'll fall in a short period of time. In the next 12 hours, expect big changes. That cold air, it's being pulled to the south very rapidly. Warm out ahead of this. So tomorrow in the northeast, it's going to be a pretty mild day once again with rain.
Take a look at what the forecast is now as we take you through tonight. This area starts to light up with the mix, ice pellets and freezing rain. Again, we think central Indiana becomes a problem for us in western Kentucky. even down through Middle Tennessee. Watch this through the Ohio Valley, light up with snow. Some of it could be very significant, too.
Yeah, and our coverage continues. We've got the forecast through 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Alex Wallace, Julie Martin, and winter weather expert Tom Nizzle up next.
Currently in our area, 30 degrees under cloudy skies. Tonight, areas of freezing rain possible early. Overcast, low 15. Winds northwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Friday, sunshine and clouds. Friday night, a few clouds from time to time. A few flurries or snow showers possible. Low 4. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Winter Storm Hunter slamming parts of Minnesota. You hear that wind, and just look at the heavy snow coming down. Ahead this hour, see if you'll be waking up to conditions like this as we track Winter Storm Hunter. And it's not just heavy snow. Millions will have to deal with dangerous icy conditions. We're live tracking Hunter tonight. I'm Alex Wallace.
And I'm Julie Martin. You know, by the time you wake up in the morning, places that were in the 60s will be below freezing and covered in snow and ice.
That's just crazy. All right, got to check this out. And this is a little bit of a Meteorology 101. Can you find the cold front? This is a pretty easy one here for you, no question about it. You can see how quickly those temperatures are just dropping off. We're going to explain a little later just how that's going to contribute to a big flash freeze in some spots.
Crazy stuff. But first, here's how many people are currently under winter alerts tonight, all because of Hunter. And you can see there all the way from Missouri and Illinois all the way up into New England, even back down into Kentucky, Alex. We've got plenty of people expecting some nasty weather as they wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, you said at the extent all the way from parts of the south, working into portions of the interior northeast. Notice, though, up and down the East Coast, no advisories or alerts in those areas. Going to be a little bit too warm in those spots, but there's still going to be a danger in those locations. We'll talk about that in just a bit.
All right, let's get the very latest now with our winter weather expert, Tom Nizzle.
Alex and Jillian, those warnings are out just not for snowfall, but for that dangerous mix of freezing rain and sleet as well. Let's take a look at the radar again quickly here, and you can kind of get that large-scale view. There's that cold front you guys were just talking about, that rapid drop in temperatures across the area. St. Louis at 26. Back this afternoon, it was 62 degrees. They're now getting a mix of sleet and some freezing rain coming across there. And look at the temperatures back here in Iowa. They're getting down into single digits very soon. And look at this difference here. From St. Louis to Louisville, 26 to 60 degrees. But Louisville, you're going to see the same drop in temperature later tonight. Now watch how we play out here as we go through the rest of the night here. This precipitation changes over from rain into this broad area in purple here of freezing rain, then to sleet in the pink, and then to snow on the backside of this. And as we continue moving through Friday morning here, take a look at this. At the end of the Friday morning rush hour, now Louisville, Nashville, here's where your temperatures are going to begin to fall as that cold air works its way in. And again, first that mix of freezing rain, then sleet, and over to snow. As we go into the latter part of the morning and the early afternoon, now Cleveland, you're into that wintry mix. And back in Indianapolis, this system is moving quickly through the area. The snow is pretty much done. Nashville and Louisville, though, through the afternoon are going to have to contend with a few hours of snowfall. Finally, as we get into Friday evening here, the cold air really works its way in here into the moisture. This area of freezing rain really narrows up a little bit, and now we're into more of a snow event back here across parts of Ohio and going into places like upstate New York. Here's the icing that I'm worried about in particular here from southern Illinois right up through central Indiana in the midwestern part of the world here. And if we take a look at snowfall, now the snow is going to be a general area of about 3 to 5 inches in these areas right in here. So Louisville, Cincinnati probably seeing the most. Back through St. Louis, back into portions of southern Illinois, not as much snow. It's going to be more of an ice event there. And if we take a look at Nashville, once again, you see by mid-morning you're into the freezing rain, rapidly going to snow by Friday afternoon. And then as we go through the Friday evening time frame, you have to contend with that snow during the rush hour, but after that, the snow is gone. Nashville is going to be very similar to that. There's snowfall totals here about 1 to 2 inches. But take a look at the timing there in Nashville, in particular, the icing tomorrow morning and then the change over to snowfall there. And if we take a look at those temperatures beyond that, guys, look at that. 34 on Friday, Friday night 19, and Saturday only a high of 27 in Nashville. So a really big change and a very wintry change. I'll be talking about the Northeast in just a minute.
Big difference indeed. Thanks, Tom. You know, parts of Kentucky are under a winter weather warning tonight. Tree damage and power outages are possible. 2 to 4 inches of snow, not to mention the ice, as Tom was talking about.
And the Weather Channel's Chris Warren joins us from Louisville with an update on what exactly to expect there in the morning.
Winter storm warning here in Louisville, Kentucky. You wouldn't know it, though, by looking around or just going outside. Temperatures throughout the day have been in the 60s. After the sun went down, still in the 50s to around 60 degrees. In fact, people have been showing up for an ultimate Frisbee game here, wearing shorts and T-shirts. They're here just north of Interstate 64. Interstate 64 is a road. It's an interstate that's elevated, and it goes right through downtown Louisville. If you take it about 260 miles west, you're going to end up in St. Louis. And if you're in Louisville, call a friend in St. Louis and ask them how the weather is. They'll tell you it's freezing. And guess what? That is heading here. Temperatures about 20 to even 30 degrees cooler at the same time from Louisville to St. Louis. That air is going to get here. Public Works knows that once it does get here in the morning hours when it gets the coldest and there's precipitation coming down, things are going to get tricky, but they tell me they're ready for the challenge.
During the day tomorrow, we're really going to be concerned about this change from rain to ice to snow, because the ice really is what can cause you bad problems. But we're pretty confident right now we'll be able to get down a good layer of salt to really sort of minimize those problems, but you know, you can't avoid them all.
This is going to be a situation where you do need to be smart about things, because when you wake up in the morning and look outside, that's not what you're going to get 12 hours later. Going to work, it's going to be wet here in Louisville, most likely, and then coming home, it's going to be white. And in between, it's going to be very messy. So be careful and listen to your local officials. Again, a winter storm warning in effect here in Louisville.
All right, thanks, Chris. Notice he was wearing a fairly light jacket. I can promise you he'll be more bundled up come tomorrow when the cold air comes on in. In fact, Kansas City is the spot that has experienced some of that cold weather. Right now, temperatures in the teens. Now, you were near 60 today, and those temperatures quickly fell this evening. Tomorrow, you won't be getting out of the lower 20s. So a big, massive change out there for us, which sets us up for potential issues here in some locations that are going to be potentially dealing with what is known as a flash freeze. So here we go, looking at what happens here. You start off, temperatures above freezing like you saw there around Kansas City, like you're seeing in places like Louisville as well. Precipitation falls into that air mass and, for the most part, coming down in the form of rain. But then the temperatures quickly fall off, and that's what we're seeing. Very cold air mass sliding eastbound here for us, and so those temperatures drop sharply in a very short amount of time, and anything that's out there on the roads freezes very quick. And if you're driving out there, guess what? You're slipping and sliding on that ice, which is pretty common, that black ice out there for you. So if you don't have to be out on the roads here tonight and into tomorrow, please stay away from them.